Pot in My Noggin, hosted by CK Sims, creating a platform to elevate, educate, and heal by creating a space where people can share their stories of struggle, triumph, and redemption. CKS Media.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Pot in My Noggin. And I'm your host, CK Sims. And today we're joined by a grandpa. Not my grandpa, although it would be pretty cool if he was my grandpa, maybe. But I don't think he's old enough to be my grandpa. So we'll see about that. Jim Tracy, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thanks, CK. I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Well, it is an honor to have you. So people at home may be wondering, who is this audacious guy who I just called Grandpa? So you go by, you're known as the Grampion.
Yes.
Yes, but there's a story behind that. There's a reason.
Yeah, there sure is.
Right?
I've got 16 grandkids, and my grandson Wesley and I were playing a game of cards at a lake cabin, and I beat him. And Wesley's a very, very competitive young man. And he got up and he was a little frustrated. He says, "You're not Grandpa anymore." And I'm like, "What? Are you kidding me? You can't do that to me." He goes, "Well, you're not a champion either." And then he smiled. He got that Wesley half-wry smile, and he said, "You're Grampion." And it stuck. That was in 2018, I think, or something, 2013 maybe, but a long time ago.
A long time ago, but you said 2018. Yeah. In 2018, you had a major life event, no?
Yeah.
Like a major life event.
Yeah, it was pretty big.
So we're going to get organized. So I'll tell you what I tell a lot of my guests. I don't do a deep dive of any of my guests before, just before we start the show. And the reason I do that is because I like to keep things organic, and I don't want to formulate a bunch of questions. But as I was reading through your story, a couple things have caught my attention that we want to talk about today. So first, let's talk about the 2018 situation.
Okay.
Tell them.
I was up at Schweitzer Mountain, Idaho, and it was just after Christmas. And I was skiing with a grandson, and I was coming down bumpy Black Run. And I was actually skied faster than he did. So I would go ahead and then I would wait for him to catch up and catch my breath a little bit. And then I would, fly by him and wait for him again. And it was going really well. And I came around a corner and I hit like the backside of a mogul. And my leg was a little bit too extended.
The backside of a what? Sorry?
A mogul. A ski mogul, a bump on a ski hill.
Nothing about skiing, sorry.
All right. So in any event, I came across this incredible pain in my leg, and there was just my equipment sprayed everywhere. They call it a yard sale. Skis one way, poles the other way, except my left ski had stayed on. And I got to the bottom of the hill via the toboggan of shame, and they took me to the hospital in Spokane, Washington, where I was kind of self-diagnosing, and I said, "Hey, doc, here's what you're going to do. You're going to tell me to wait the swelling go down, and then you're going to set it tomorrow or pin it or whatever, and everything's going to be fine." He said, "No, Mr. Tracy, you've crushed your tibial plateau, and you have compartment syndrome, and if we don't operate within the next hour or so, you're going to lose your leg." And that got my attention. So,
I can imagine.
I woke up. I remember waking up and. It was a pretty intensive surgery, but I woke up and I was just sobbing, and I don't know why, but I started pulling at my covers, and then I saw my toes, and I started laughing, and that's the only thing I remember, seeing my toes for 24 hours, and so it was 90 days of non-weight bearing, so you can't put any weight on your leg, and they said you're never gonna walk right again. And so we got that conquered, and we walk every day, 10,000 steps. And they said, "You'll never run again." And my first response was, "Thank you. I was never a runner anyway. I don't have a runner's body. I'm not that guy." But it really kind of irritated me that they said you can't do this. And so I've completed now 4 5K races. Usually terrain races like a Spartan race. Going to do another one on July 12th here in Boise, and going to do it with 7 of our grandkids. So I'm really excited about that.
Right?
Muddy race. Yeah, it's a mud run. Something like that. They call it a Spartan race, a mud run, a muddy dash. There's lots of different styles.
But it's
But
dirty. You get filthy in
it's
it.
dirty, and
Yeah.
you get to climb over stuff, and you get to exercise all the parts of your body that you probably shouldn't when you're 65 years old.
Okay, okay. I was trying to math, which is always a dangerous thing to be fair. So in my brain, I was trying to calculate. I'm like, okay, because you just said at the beginning of that story that you had 16 grandchildren. And then, so I was,
14 and 2 on the way. So I'll call it 16. Yeah.
Okay. And so how many children did you have?
5.
5.
5. Yeah.
It's a lot of multiplication. And so I was actually putting you in my brain, which you don't look like it at all, but I was putting you in your early to mid 70s.
Oh, wow.
Trying to compute that out, like 16 grandkids. But yeah, okay. So you're 65. You don't look 65 even. And you don't act 65 either because you're out doing mud races.
Yeah.
So you really are not a grandpa. You are a Grampion, if you will.
There you go. Thank you. I'll take that.
So you're very. It's something that I noticed when I was talking to you, and I picked it up a little bit. I think when I was reading through your profile and the form that you filled out. But when you talk about your grandkids, your eyes light up. Do you want to talk about that for a second? Because I love this, right? I think that's fantastic.
You know, the ability of our like baby boomers. I'm a baby boomer, and our ability to influence our grandkids is just unparalleled. And especially in the generation, the Gen Zs, they're just aching for someone to come alongside them. And I think the reason is that as boomers, we didn't do a very good job of taking care of our latchkey kids. The first group of latchkey kids called the millennials, and then the or Gen Xers, and then the Zulus, and now the Alphas, and all the way up until these Alphas, and even some of the Gen Zs, they didn't get a lot of mentoring, and now they're just crying out for it. And so our ability to invest into their lives is unparalleled, unprecedented in American history, because they're actually crying for it. They're wanting it. And they're trying to get the boomers to put their phones down and talk to them.
Well, it's so interesting. You said American history, but I really do feel that it's global.
Oh, yeah.
Right? If you want to think about it. And I love the way that you frame that as well. Because there's always this weird, unspoken sort of like hostility between millennials and boomers, right?
Yeah.
And boomer has taken on some sort of like negative connotation, if you think, in the world today. Yeah. But millennials get a bad rap as well. Gen X wasn't so bad. They were the I'm right on the cusp. So it took me a long time to accept that I was a millennial, by the way, because I always thought I was a Gen Xer, but I'm 1 year after the cutoff. But you're right. Now, that being said, you said you have the great opportunity of influencing them, and they want mentorship. But I would argue also that these alphas and Gen Zers and millennials have influenced you as well.
Absolutely.
And that is evident in how you're speaking, because you're speaking in a open sort of accepting, understanding frame of mind, which is often what a lot of people don't do when they talk about like those generational gaps. They're like, oh, I don't understand that group, or I don't understand this group, or I'm like, oh, what's the world coming to? Like these sort of narratives is what we hear often when it comes to any generation that's not our own.
Yeah, so they've existed since 1903 when my grandpa was born.
Fair.
And
right?
every generation that comes after that. You remember the silent generation came in, after the great, what we would call the greatest generation. Then the silent generation showed up, and they started dancing in skirts. Can you imagine those crazy kids?
And it's just really interesting to think about it, though, when you break down just the narratives and the structures of the generations, right? And then
Yeah.
we've labeled and segregated based on years of being alive and whatever. But I
Certainly.
love that
But the thing that we should be chasing is generational harmony.
yes, yes.
And because we've got more in common than we have that differentiate us. So let's like search for those things that we have in common. When I do keynote speaking, I often talk about the keys to speaking across generations, and I use three fingers. The first finger is number one. It's the biggest one on my hand, so it's the most important. It's generous listening. The second one has a ring on it, and that's relationships. And the third one is the most important finger on your hand. It's the pinky. And people don't realize that if you lose your pinky, you lose 50% of your grip strength. So it's a really important finger, and that's respect. So if we listen generously, build relationships, and respect, that means give it before it's earned sometimes. And sometimes it means to earn it before it's given. And so if we would just dump the ego and go after the relationships by listening and giving respect, we're all going to be better off.
So you just said something there that resonates with me big time, right? So we have more in common than what differentiates us. And I think that that's applicable not just generationally, but with everything.
Yeah.
Right? Even now, in this current moment in our history, with the great divide, if you will, we have more in common. And this made me, this is totally off topic, but it made me think about something, and I'm just going to say it now. I like to reflect on situations, and you know how conservatives, because I'm from Canada, so up here we call them conservatives, down there you call them Republicans, and Democrats are liberals in Canada. And conservatives are all like libtards and all of these awful, terrible things. But then I would consider myself a liberal person, but here's the thing. We always get like, no, you can't speak. That's awful. And we try to shut them down and like push them aside. And because I reflect so often, the other day I was thinking to myself, I'm like, what are we doing that's different than what they're doing? Because we're not, they're angry about something. Why aren't we listening to what they're angry about?
Yeah.
And figuring out like a compromise. Why does it have to be the opposite ends of spectrum? And why can't we come together? Like we're doing the same thing to each other.
Yeah.
So,
Certainly, we don't have to name call. And further, I would say that we don't have to be angry. Anger is a choice, and
it is a choice.
And I've often said, just because we disagree doesn't mean I hate you. And if we could get our political parties and our allies to stop calling each other names, and let's find some adults in the room.
Yes, some adults in the room would be nice. Yes, name calling is just anyway. But I just think the way we're going to get through the next, say, and it's not even 4 years because it's not even specific to America. It's specific to the world right now. Like there's a lot of things happening in America, but the world, we need to give kindness. If we can lead with kindness on both sides,
oh my goodness,
and what?
Wouldn't that change a lot?
It would change everything. We wouldn't even be here. But anyway, I digress. So on top of being a grandpa to 16 grandkids, you are known also. You're known by many names, apparently, Mr. Tracy. The Curator of Culture. Tell me about that, because this interests me. But it wasn't this page that I saw. While you tell me, I'm going to figure out where I saw what I saw that sent off a thing in my brain.
Okay, so I work and I help companies. A lot of times I help companies to find the culture that often was abandoned from the voyage that started with a single entrepreneur or a pair of entrepreneurs and ended up as a big company. And so I do consulting with companies. And one of the companies that I consulted with said, man, you are the curator of culture. Now, first I was like, oh, curator, that sounds like a librarian or like a museum dude. And I'm not. And they said, no, it's Latin for someone who cares for. And so I'm like, well, that's, I'll own that one. Because if you learn to care for your culture, then you're keeping some of those entrepreneurial, zealous roots that got you where you are. And we forget sometimes that the people who come up under us, they're nobody walks into work and says, I think I'll do a terrible job today. I just think it's just a bad day, and I'm just going to be awful to everybody I meet. Nobody does that, and so why then do we change organizational mantras to say, hey, we used to care about people, but now we care about stuff or dollars or revenue, or it's really all about people. It always has been, and the companies that really hang on to that and cling to it are the ones that win. And so I taught a company to win, and they came back to me later and they said, man, you are just the curator of culture. And I'm like, okay, thank you.
This is fascinating. I love this, by the way. This is the sentence that sent off the fireworks in my head. I help businesses and organizations craft cultures where employees love their management because management loves their employees. Now, it's so interesting because I am currently in the process, because I like to write and all of that sort of thing. I'm currently in the process of writing an article about the intrinsic value of finding a doer and a true leader in the same person, and what that can do for your business. Or I'm doing a case study on Rolls-Royce. Cannot pronounce his name off the top of my head at this moment, but how he turned things around and the steps he took to change that culture and to get involvement. But so that was so I'm working on that piece right now, and I saw this, and this is my I don't know how to say it. I don't even know, the word's gone. This is what I live for. This idea. And I have a corporation that I started last year and slowly building up to do the same sort of work around transformation specifically. That's my background, is transformation consulting. I feel like we are in a place in this world where all of the interest lives with the shareholders. Can we make the shareholders happy? And okay, we didn't have a great return this quarter, so now we're going to cut out a shit ton of our human capital and affect the businesses, like people's lives. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, and I know that people get worked up about this all the time, because you have your CEOs with making $25 million, but they just cut $25 million in job salaries. But to me, it is evident, and the proof is in the pudding, if you actually look at companies who value their culture and their people first. They may not have those short-term numbers and those short-term KPIs that they're so, happy and victorious. But in the long run, they future-proof themselves often. Because they have people who will go the extra mile. When you show your people love, which I'm a huge subscriber to Steve Farber's Love is Just Damn Good Business. I'm not sure if you've read the book, but I love this. When you love your people, when you care for your people, you create a level of buy-in that you cannot see. You'll never find it anywhere else. And so, I love this. So how did you get into this work? And what made you, how did you, Jim Tracy, sorry, I'm getting excited. This is exciting. You're like, okay, dude, calm down. How did you decide or realize that this was the secret sauce?
Well, my son and I started with 2 employees, and we loved one another as father and son. And that grew to 3, and that grew to a crew, and that grew to 2 crews. And then soon I had to be less involved in the field and more involved in the office. And so went up a little bit up the ivory tower. But I found out that every time that I lost attention about the people who are actually doing the work, that the work didn't get done as well. And I was like, that's a problem. And so I crafted some things, some rationales for them to do a great job, and some cliches, I think we'll call them, around the why. And if we can give them the reason that they should do a good job is to take care of their family. The reason that they take care of their family, and the reason they come to work at all is for their family. And if their family knows that I love them, then their family will encourage them to go above and beyond what would normally be expected. I mean, if you're just in an employer-employee relationship, you're just trading labor for money,
Mm-hmm.
and that's very transactional,
Yes.
and it's not very relational. And if you can add a relational aspect to that, then all of a sudden, then pretty soon we're at 100 employees, and I'm walking out in the shop, and that's how I got into podcasting. Actually, I realized there were people there, and I didn't even know their name. And so I had to reach out to them in a different medium. And we started doing a thing called Legacy Radio, where I just had all the employees on a call at one time. And I spoke into their lives in a methodology that they could hear. And then we merged that with another company. And that grew into another podcast called On Radio. And that has grown into the Grampion. And so I think that what we can do is influence people in a positive way by investing in their lives, by what's actually not in our brain, because that's always transactional, but what's in our heart. If someone thinks you love them, what are they willing to do for you? Well, they're willing to do whatever love does. That's the kind of guys I want working for me.
Well,
That's the
of
kind of
course.
gals I want representing me.
But you don't get that unless you give that.
Perfect.
Right?
Yeah.
It's because when people come to a job interview, they're looking at salary and they're looking at culture, of course, now more so than any day. When they come to work, however, you can change their perspective of why they come to work.
Yeah.
You can do it. And
Yep.
for me, it's not just you, the top dog, if you will, the top guy
Yeah.
or the top woman. Every level of leadership below has to understand that there are specific values in creating a culture where your people want to come and give their best. And so I'm going to share something, and we're going to take a quick break, but I'll share something with you first. And this is not me showing off or anything, but this is how my mind worked for all the years that I've been in leadership. So anytime somebody came onto my team that was a direct report, I would have a call with them and we would have a quick conversation. I'd be like, hey, welcome to the team. We're glad to have you here. Just wanted to have this call to set some expectations. All right, perfect, good. So when you're with me, you're in a safe space. You don't have to pretend to be anything you want. If you're unhappy, be unhappy. If you got something to say, I want you to tell me. There's not going to be any reactionary thing.
Get real. Yeah.
What I want from you is you to give me your best. But what I need you to understand when I say that is that your best on a Tuesday may look very different than your best on a Thursday. So this is why I'm not giving you a number. I'm not telling you to give me 100% because no one has 100% to give your job every single day. Yeah. If you come to work and you've only got 20%, then you give me the 20%. Keep me in the loop. Let me know what you need. Yeah. And then also, I'm like, where do you see yourself in the next year, 2 years? I want to know. Do you just want to stay in this job or do you want something more out of life? Are you driven? Do you have interest? That sort of thing. So that's our starting conversation. I let them ask whatever questions they want and then onwards we go. Wonderful. And I maintain that relationship with them. And I have learned from experience and applying this same sort of approach to so many different teams at different levels that kind of leadership and truly being a soft place for them to land creates a level of buy-in. I had a VP come to me once because I stepped away from work for a month for health and they were watching over my team. And I come back, all good, I'm all healthy, that sort of thing. And she comes to me and she says to me, Curtis, I just have something to ask you. I'm like, okay. She is like, do you know how much your team supports you and loves you? And I'm like, yeah, I love them too. She's like, okay, let me rephrase. What are you doing to your, what are you doing to your team? I'm like, oh, I threaten bodily harm. She looks at me and I was like, I'm kidding, clearly. She was like, okay. So I explained to her, and then she goes and says, let me just say this one thing, just out of caution. And she goes and says, I need you to understand how much buy-in from this team, these people you have. And I want you to know what great responsibility that is, so that I know that you can move people outside of their comfort zones, but I want you to be cautious not to move them so far. And I was like, I'll accept that. I do know I have the power to help move them into believing them in
Mhm.
themselves. But I thought that was great advice. This is not me interviewing me, though. I want to hear more from you. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Partner today with CK Sims and Pod in My Noggin to get in front of an audience that cares. You will be supporting mental health stories, tales of resilience, and uplifting content, aligning your brand with bringing goodness, authenticity, and kindness front and center. This spot could be yours. Do you have a story of struggle and resilience? One that you want to share with others and possibly help someone through their own struggles? Find the link in the show description and fill out the guest form today.
Welcome back, everybody. We're talking to Jim Tracy. And before the break, I did a lot of talking, not going to lie. I want to hear more from Jim Tracy. He's inspiring me today because he's known as the Grampion, for one, and the Curator of Culture. He is a consultant. Would you call yourself a
Sort of.
consultant?
I like to think of myself as an influencer, and I influence from several places. The first one is the speaking stage. I love to inspire teams to strive to get more than they thought they could, and not only on a personal but a professional and a corporate level. And then the second thing I do is I do a podcast. It's called the Grampion, and but my most treasured position is as a husband and a father. Been married for 45 years, and I've got 5 kids and 16 grandkids, like we talked about. So,
See, so like, just you sound like an all-around wonderful human being, right? So like, your greatest achievement is you're married and 5 kids and six. Come, like just spoon feed people the wonderfulness that's coming out of you at this very moment. That's awesome. But you're also very successful. So how did you
mhm.
manage to raise a family of 5 and then be so involved in all of your because you clearly are involved in all of your grandchildren's lives, and build all of these sort of incredible pieces, these incredible offers that you have to offer? How did you manage to do that?
Well, number one, when I was 20 years old, I was walking through a house on my way to Alaska, and I was going to go weld in the pipeline and make $1 million. I was a welder, and I looked across the room, and there was this young gal sitting there wearing a gold jumpsuit. And the first thought that popped into my head is, I'm going to marry her. And I don't know where it came from, but I think maybe the good Lord blessed me with a vision that this is a girl I should. We met in August, we got engaged in October, and we were married the following April, and that was 45 years ago. And if you've ever met a wonderful person, then you've probably met someone who's a lot like my wife. And having a partner and a teammate in all of those things is a life challenge that everybody, because it's not all smooth, and it ain't all ice cream and roses. So especially with me, and especially as much as I've traveled over the years, it takes a just a committed, wonderful life partner. So that and then add to that, I was blessed to be in a family the guy I met. He's a CEO of a pretty major corporation. He would interview people, and he would put 2 columns, T and D, and he would either check you off as a T or a D. And there was one was talkers, and the other one was doers. And I was blessed to come from a family that modeled doing. And so I I have the ability to overcome things out of will that other people maybe can't. When I take the stage, people are like, "Are you scared to speak?" I'm like, "Well, no, but I used to be. When I was a child, I stuttered, and they told my mom that she should send me to the state school for retarded children, and my mother said, "No, I will not do that. I'm not going to put him in that role." And so, and then up, I just have been able to overcome a lot of things, and it's kind of, when you're too dumb to give up, maybe it's a blessing. I don't know, but that really is a hallmark.
It's really bizarre. So would you consider yourself, this is a bizarre question as well, I will acknowledge that. Would you consider yourself neurodivergent or atypical?
Wow. I think I'm pretty atypical.
You think so, but you're a doer who stuttered, who speaks in public places and can just get through everything that's thrown
And
at
I'm a math guy in terms of business, but that's where my learning disability was in math. And so you just come up with another way to move around a problem. I think that's the biggest opportunities that we have are obstacles in front of us, because they form and they build our character, which, I mean, that's really a lot about what the book is about in more ways than any. It's people who taught me to be an overcomer, if you will.
So the book is, which I love the name of the book, but I have to tell you something. I'm going to share. I like to be transparent. I feel like I am potentially looking at myself 2 years from now. There's a lot of commonalities. Obviously, I'm not married, for one. I don't have a lovely wife or husband. I don't have 5 children, and I don't have 16. I don't have a village.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's just the way you think, and you're processing information, you're presenting information, parts of your story. The gold jumpsuit, I'm still stuck on the gold jumpsuit, by the way. I just think that's fascinating. So that's why I asked that question, was neurodivergent or atypical? And I was surprised by your answer, but I'm not going to challenge your answer because I think we know ourselves best, right?
Yeah.
Just how you say you just spoke about math. Math for me in high, like I could do anything, but math still to this day, it scares the sugar out of me.
Yeah.
However, like you said, I don't get there the way other people get there. And because in school, they want you to show how you got to a place. And if it doesn't exactly match what the teacher has on their, whatever they're checking off, they fail you. And it took me 35 years. That was my misfortune. But actually, I don't know if it was a misfortune. I think it was more of a blessing in disguise. It took me 35 years to realize that the way my brain did information was not how, it was actually more of a superpower than it was a blight, I guess. I always thought it was a problem because people kept trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. Yeah. And I was that square peg, right?
Yeah.
So it took me a really long time. Building men. I'm neurodivergent and all over the place, especially if I get inspired and excited. So thanks for inspiring me, but sorry also.
I think we're having a wonderful conversation.
Good. I'm glad. I realize my wheels are spinning at this moment. So building men. So character lessons from influencers. Tell me about when did the idea of writing this book come to Mr. Tracy?
Well, when you, again, it's a matter of reach. And if I look and if I want to, like at 65, I've got 2 grandkids that aren't even born yet. If I blow the heart attack tomorrow, they'll never have known me. And so my thought is that I want to be able to give them the gift that was given to me. And that was the gift of influence from really multi-generational groups of people. Because if Building Men is just a collection of stories of people who invested deeply in me when they didn't have to. They a lot of times didn't have the time. They didn't have certainly the need, but they thought it was so important that they took some time and they said, "Hey, you might want to try it this way. You might want to do it that way. Here, let me show you that. Ooh, I bet that's going to hurt." I mean, there were lots of ways that people came alongside me, and those are the people who formed me. And
I love that.
the title came from my son was doing a magazine interview as my partner in the business, and they said, "Well, what is it that you do now? Now you've kind of come through the." He said, "Well, I used to build towers, communications towers, and I built guide towers, and I built self-supporting towers. I built monopoles. I built glue lam structures. Any kind of tower you can build, I've built it. I'm really good at it, but I don't do that anymore. Now I build men, and I build men who build towers." And that really kind of stuck with me. And then as I was looking for titles for the book, it just kind of like, if I look back, my mom is one of the most important, influential people in my life. And she protected me. Her influence on me was remarkable by any measure. But she didn't really sharpen me. And the people who sharpened me are the people who I write about in the book. And so there's probably another book in there, Women Building Men. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if this one sells a copy or not, or if it helps. And this is really a letter that's to my grandchildren. It's for them, but you can come along on the ride if you'd like.
I think that's. I love it. I love all of it, and I love that you brought up your mom as well. I think the idea of building men, and when you're thinking about the book, it's really the men who built you.
Yes,
Is what the book is about. That influence, the impact, the mentorship, all of that. But no, there's no but. And I'm willing that have done this now to
yeah.
others. So there's others that could potentially write a building men book that you would have a chapter in.
Exactly. And not only that, the people who read this book, then at the end of the book, I've tasked them with investing in people who are younger than them, who that they can come alongside and they can give these character lessons to, so that, I mean, there's a guy that I write about in the book, and he said, every morning when the kids walked into school, he would say, "Just do the right thing. Just do the right thing." And I talk about it, but because my son grabbed a hold of that. We were sitting in a meeting with a large wireless carrier, and there were two young men in there. My son was one of the young men, and another guy was in there. And he said, "So we kind of, they're measuring the testosterone in the room." And the guy says to my son, he says, "So what do you do when they don't know the right thing to do?" And Ryan's just kind of thought about it. And he says, "Well, we tell them to do the best right thing." And that wasn't enough. And he said, "So what about when they don't know the best right thing to do?" He says, "Well, then we give them a phone and we ask them to call us and we'll help them to find the best right thing." And if you look at that, that's really what mentorship is about.
Mm-hmm.
It's about, there's a Greek word called parakaleo, and it's to come alongside. And when we come alongside people and to care for, to love, however you want to put it, whatever your relationship is with the people, whether they be at home or at work or at school or wherever, if you're able to come alongside them and they sense that your loyalty is based on something that's deeper than something you can get from them, it's going to be life-changing for them. They're going to think about you when they're 70 years old and staring at the grave, when they're going to be going, "Wow, that guy was really terrific." Well, that's the kind of legacy I want to leave.
I love that. I love it. I mentioned 35 before. At 35, I had a life event, and that life event is the catalyst to why I am here today. In that life event, when I came out the other side, I realized that the only legacy I cared to leave behind was kindness.
Mm.
All I want people to think about when they hear my name or they read my name is that he was kind. It's all that matters. To be honest, to me, if you are kind to someone, like genuine kindness, because I often tell people in any situation, whether I'm leading them directly or not, that there's a distinct difference between being nice and being kind. Nice is superficial, but kindness can have some thorns in it, but the thorns don't hurt as much because you're doing it kindly. And
Yeah.
then you have to go into the whole assertive talk. But yeah, so kindness to me is the greatest currency in the world. If everybody actually just practiced a little bit more kindness when they woke up in the morning, all of our problems would just pretty much go away. Because what would happen is that they would hold space for people to tell their side of the story. And then they would hold space on their end to receive their story and to try and come to some sort of compromise, right? We don't see that. It's too much division. But anyway, we won't solve it all in one podcast.
Well,
So-
my wife has 3 criteria that she uses. If you want to let somebody know something, first, is it true? And then, is it necessary? And then, is it kind? And if you can hit on all 3 of those things, that's just a remarkable litmus test of why you should communicate even a hard thing to someone.
Absolutely. And sometimes it's the hard things are the most important things to communicate, because we're always so shy to say, hey, you know what? This happens and we need to course correct.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not a character flaw because mistakes happen. We are all human. So therefore we are not infallible.
Yeah. So funny. My publisher came to me and because I'd never written a book before, and the publisher came to me and they said, we've got really good news. We want to publish your book. It's not there yet. So I'm going to give it to you straight. And I'm like, okay, I like straight. I can handle straight. She said, your baby's not ugly, but it really needs a haircut.
I love that. I love that.
Okay.
So,
and the editing process is very painful, I will tell you.
Well, no, I editing can feel like someone is nitpicking your life apart.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's so concise. And when you're writing something and you really want to get something across, in your head, it sounds perfect. Mm-hmm. But to someone with a trained eye and experience, it may be like, this is not landing how you want it to land. So you need to...
When we got done, I have the true, genuine benefit of having a wife she homeschooled for, a bunch of kids for 17 years. And so she's like a very, very good proofreader and an incredible editor. And so we got done and the book is done and it's been submitted and they gave it back to me and she went back and she's finding the little teeny mistakes, the grammatical and the punctuation errors. And she said, I think it's chapter 14. Yeah, chapter 14. That's kind of the biggest part of your life, and that's the worst chapter. Do it again.
Well,
okay then. So we did it again, and it's a lot better. It's incredible how much better it got because someone had the character to say, well, this is true and it's necessary, and I'm going to give it to you in a kind way, but you're still gonna get it. It's not your best work, so redo it. So there you go.
I love it. Leading with kindness. So your book just went to press, correct?
It went to print today. Yeah.
So that's timely.
Yeah.
I love that. And when is the estimated release date?
They are doing a full-scale launch on June 3rd, right before Father's Day. And it's available at Barnes & Nobles or anywhere you buy books. You can pre-order it right now. We'll have e-copies, and Audible is being recorded by a friendly Canadian fellow who I've really just fallen in love with, Tim Dixon from Vancouver. So we're really excited about that.
That is very cool. So it's not up for pre-order right now.
It is up for pre-order right now. Anywhere you buy books.
All right, listen up, everybody. So we want to make sure, and I want to tell everybody because I ask everybody this question on my form. What is your messaging to others? And I loved what you said. You said a lot of great things, but live a big, audacious life. And I love that because why not?
Yeah.
Be a Grampion. I don't know if I can be a Grampion, but I can be a champion, maybe. Yeah,
But
for
you
sure.
can. You can be a grandpa and a champion because I tell you what, if you just now I have to use U.S. numbers because those are the ones I know. But there's 100,000 children in foster care looking for adoption in the United States, and not all of them. I mean, big brothers and big sisters. There's all kinds of great organizations, whether it be social based organizations, faith based organizations. There's all kinds of ways. All these kids are looking for someone to mentor them. And you too. I mean, you're starting to get a little gray hair, just a little twinge of gray hair around
Oh, I
there.
have lots of
I
gray hair.
I think you've got the grandpa. I mean, look at this. You got the grandpa.
We
You got
do
a
have a
great
similar
start.
aesthetic. Yes, we do. I noticed when we joined the call. Um, that's it. Yes. So, okay, you know what? Maybe I will be a Grampian then.
Yeah. And
And
pick something to be a champion at because everybody can be a champion. It's not really about that little dopamine moment that you won the Super Bowl. It's about the path that you took to get to whatever mountain you had to climb. Sometimes it's running a 5K race when you're 65 years old and helping your grandkids through it. Sometimes it's writing a book. I never would have thought I would have written a book.
I bet you have more in you too.
Well, there's actually that's true. There's another one that's been accepted for publishing called Management by Cliche, and there's another one that's done and they're evaluating it for publishing right now. So yeah,
See, I'm intuitive. Um,
influencer.
yes. What's interesting too, I want to circle back real quick to your because the book is called Building Men, and you talked about the potential for another book, Building Women, or talking about women influence. And so what's really interesting for me is to date, I have been sharpened by strong female leads in my life. And I think it's actually because when I reflect on it, I think that I scare a lot of men because I am a pretty sort of outspoken, not rude, but outspoken, sort of flamboyant person. So I think there's always that sort of discomfort there.
Yeah,
Whereas
aka podcaster.
well, exactly, yes. I tend to connect really well with women, and I've been very lucky in my life since 35 of having strong female leads who have pushed me so far beyond what I thought was imaginable because
Mhm.
they saw something in me. And like, I just thought going to work and being a doer was what you did. Like, do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? I just thought that that's what you did. I thought that's what everybody did. Because I wasn't paying attention to what other people were doing. I was just like,
yeah,
okay, well, I would always tell my boss, and like, make sure you have work for me because
yeah,
I don't like being bored. So like, if you
yeah.
got something, just send it to me. Let me do it. So that's I would love to see that kind of book written as well because there's a lot of shout outs for women out there as well. But Building Man, I want to read that book for sure. June 3rd is the big launch. It's available for pre-order right now
Yes.
um, across pretty much, I guess, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the bookstores.
Yep.
That's
Every
what it is.
platform.
People can listen to Grampion is the name of the podcast. Sorry, I'm
Hmm.
like, I knew this, but so thegrampion.com is your blog, but they can also
Yes.
link to your
The
podcast.
podcast is there as well. Yeah.
So you have 2 books in the pipeline,
Uh huh.
and you're going to do your muddy run, muddy something,
Yep. July
um,
12th.
July 12th. You got 2 grandbabies on the way.
Twins. Twin girls.
Oh, that is wonderful. So, I mean, it sounds like you have lots going on at 65.
Yeah.
You also seem healthy. That you're prioritizing health.
Yes.
It looks like you probably have a lot of years in front of you still. So, like,
Yeah.
what are you retired?
You
Ish.
know, I don't even know that is something that I would even consider. And I say that I was with my dad, and we were out on the plains in South Dakota, and I was 47 years old, and there was a plane that went overhead. There's a chapter in the book of this. Plane went overhead, and I said, Dad, when's the last time you flew in one of those? He said, oh, I was with your grandpa, and I was with Pilot John, and we went over here, and we looked at all the old farms, and we looked at all the old duck hunting places, and did all that. And he said, I'd give anything to do that again. Well, I have a bias for action, and that was in April, and I took him on a flight in October. Then my wife and I moved to Boise, and I used to have to go from Bozeman, Montana to Boise on a monthly basis. And so one of those times I was over the River of No Return wilderness area. And I looked down, I thought there's no place to land there. That would be a wilderness, a place of no return. It could be prophetic. And so I learned to fly jets at 62. And now I fly twin engine jets, and I get to go see my grandkids. And I think I see the statistically people die about 2 years after they retire. I'm not going there, man. I'm gonna leave this world in a burned out, fried out, worn out body that just has got nothing left in it, man.
Yeah, but see, I don't know if you'll get there, because I think the way that you're living life and you're approaching life is going to keep you vibrant and as young for as long as it possibly can. Right?
Let's
Because
hope so.
you're approaching it holistically. You're approaching it with love and curiosity. You don't want to like quiet down on a front porch and just read a newspaper for the next 20 years. You want to live life. Who goes
Yeah.
and gets their pilot license at 62? Like,
Yeah.
so here's this. So we're going to break it down real quick before we close out this particular podcast today. You, my friends, are quite inspirational. And
Thank you.
it's very rare. I'm easily excited. I'm not going to lie. Like, I love people who are fascinating, who have great stories. But what is interesting about you is that you have caused me to just sort of fire off so many things in this particular conversation. You've even validated some of my like areas of like things that I'm working on or want to work on. You
Wonderful.
spoke about, having a stutter when you were a child, your mother refusing to put you into that role. And then now you are this public speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And I would hate public speaking. Speaking in front of people or presenting
Mm-hmm.
is the most vomit-inducing thing that I could do in my entire life. However,
Number 2 fear in the world.
yeah, can I tell you that it sucks because I'm actually good at it?
Yeah.
And it's when when I'm forced to do it because my work or whatever the situation may be, I just do it. Meanwhile, people don't see the sweat accumulating on my back
Yeah.
or the fact that my hands are shaking.
Yeah.
So when I share that with people afterwards, that I get extremely nervous and I feel sick and all of those things. They're always saying, you would never know.
Yeah.
You were born
That's
to
awesome.
do it.
Yes.
But so when you say to me that now it doesn't bug you,
I'm a bit counterphobic. And so when you think about, I started in the tower business and I was afraid of heights. Climbing cellular communications towers when you're afraid of heights is probably not a good combination, but you have to overcome it intellectually so that you can overcome it physically. Public speaking was a pretty genuine fear, and my parents helped me in large part overcome that by putting me in positions where I would have to speak in front of a group of people. And then they helped cultivate that by encouragement. And so if you're afraid of something, I didn't really like flying, but I got this little seed of flying when I was young. And then I had a reason. And so if you turn something that makes you a little bit of afraid into a pursuit, then you have an opportunity. Then you have something that you can do that will inspire other people, that will help other people, that will make a difference in somebody's life. And that's what we're all here to do.
I love that. I do. I really love that. And I'm of the mind. I didn't. What did you call it? Phobia.
Counterphobic.
Counterphobic. I like this term.
Yeah.
Um,
Attack
so
the thing that makes you afraid. Now, I will tell you that I'm terrified of snakes. I don't want to go around snakes. I'm
it's the
not gonna.
same.
I have to draw some lines.
No,
My,
it's funny because I used to be afraid of spiders and snakes. Spiders, I'm with now. It took. We don't have time to tell you that story.
yeah,
But snakes are one of the things. I don't even like watching them on TV or
yeah.
seeing them. They're awful. I look at fear. 35. I talked about that already. I realized that if I continued to live in fear, I would never do anything with my life. So now, when the opportunity will come to speak or to someone asks me to present on something, I always know because people know me that I could say, "Hey, I don't feel comfortable doing this. I'll prepare everything for you, but could you do it?" I know I have that out,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't allow myself to take the out.
Good
Uh,
on you.
because I just like what's the best that can happen really, and that was a change, right? What's the worst that can happen is the saying, but what is the best that can happen
Yeah.
when you face your fears and you do it anyway? This has been a wonderful conversation. We definitely went over time. I don't regret a minute of it. So for everybody at home listening, you can find the book Building Men by Jim Tracy for pre-order right now. It's coming out June 3rd. You can go check out Jim Tracy at thegrampion.com. It's spelled just as it sounds. So TheGrampion.com. I will also link it in the description.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Let's get Jim Tracy to the NYT bestseller list, y'all.
Sure, that'd be awesome.
Like, can we not make you're putting your best foot forward, right? So let's get you out there. Let's get these stories done. I don't have that kind of influence yet, but we can try. So
Yeah, well, my hope is that we bring value to people. If people are struggling, if you're raising children, if you have nieces and nephews and people like that, this is hopefully an encouragement for you to come alongside and be an investor in those young folks, because we can all do it, and it does create a lot of opportunities for all of us.
Perfect. I love that. All right, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Jim Tracy, for being on the show. I really appreciated this conversation. I hope everyone at home enjoyed it. Until next time, get out there and live your wildest dreams. Talk soon.
For media and sponsorship inquiries, email info@cksims.com or visit cksims.com and fill out the contact form. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. A new episode airs every Saturday. CKS Media.